I know it's dark. There's no such thing as authentic, right? Because if I turn a bunch of lights on, get makeup on, now I'm inauthentic? Or is that authentic because I'm prepared? There's no such thing as inauthentic. And that's coming from somebody who even called myself maybe an authenticity coach at one point. It's like imitation crab. I got to imitate something. Why can't it just be whatever it is? So you might say, well, no, Leah, inauthentic is when somebody doesn't say the truth or they fake being somebody that they're not. My hair is awesome right now. But who are you to judge who they really are? It takes a lifetime to discover who you really are. Who are we to ever say who somebody else is or what is authentic or inauthentic in them? Now we can look at behavior, and everybody acts sometimes. And again, this is coming from an acting teacher. And it's funny that I'm quiet right now, by the way, because it's still really early in the morning. That's also why I don't want to blast a bunch of lights on. I want to speak from my heart. I just did yoga, and a lot of YouTubers always say, oh, this just hit me, right, in meditation. And that can even sound inauthentic. It's like, oh, everybody says that. But that is when you get downloads. I get downloads when I'm in yoga and meditation. And that may be when it's the most authentic. But then I get ready and get prepared, and then I lose it. I get the tripod, which could have been easier. So I'll try to keep this concise, but here's the deal. We all act because we're all putting on the appropriate character for the situation that we think that we're in. So say, for instance, you're really scared. Maybe you're downtown alone late at night and somebody comes up next to you and you're legitimately, authentically fearful. You're not going to say to that person if they say, hey, how are you? I'm terrified, even though that might be authentic for you. You might act a little bit and act like everything's fine. Or if you've been used to attuning to everybody else, you definitely have gotten good at that. Right? And then somebody else, the authentic police, can come along and say, well, you're inauthentic. But again, who is really to know what that even means? You're authentic in that moment. Sometimes it's not appropriate to speak your truth. That's the problem with this society today, is that everybody thinks that it's their entitlement to bulldoze other people with their quote unquote authenticity, when really it's just being rude. When really it's just being either victim or entitlement. And it's a calling to turn within, right? Anytime anybody is triggered, like, I'm always amazed by people who want, like, really, we're supposed to warn you every time that you might be triggered warning. Like, the whole world is a trigger warning. Just anything. The minute you open your eyes, maybe just have a banner that goes across and says trigger warning. because that's next to impossible and that's not my responsibility. That's each one of our responsibility. And I think what it is to be authentic is to look at your own stuff because you can never control somebody else. And it's not up to you to judge what is authentic or inauthentic. It takes a lifetime to figure out how to be authentic yourself. And that isn't a pass just to be rude. So sometimes you might be being polite. And that's where a lot of people end up getting walked all over. Really good people are mistaken for being weak a lot of times because politeness in this society is like almost a thing of the past. Just common respect, decency, and politeness, manners. You don't have to agree with everybody all the time, but you don't have to be rude in the name of authenticity. How many times has that happened to you? Where someone scolds you for being quote unquote fake when you're just being kind. Because kindness is so rare these days. Something that's been on my heart a lot, and then my own ego, I guess. I guess when you're not being authentic, it's your ego, but see, then you're authentically in your ego. Or you could say a narcissist is inauthentic, but no, they're authentically playing the role of a narcissist. They're authentically manipulating. They're authentically doing that. You see what I'm saying? So it's a paradox. So what do we do with that? You're like, yeah, but Leah, I still want to be authentic. This is amazing. I got to try to show you. I'm up on a farm right now, and this is what I'm looking out at right now. Okay. So I know in any given moment, we're all acting. Like Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage. We're just actors. Each man has his entrance and exit, and in a lifetime, I'm butchering Shakespeare right now, but in a lifetime, one man can play many roles. And I'd say in a moment, in a day. And you might go, well, no, only narcissists do that when they mask up. No, everybody does that. Even the empath does that. When you're being walked all over. I have a giant wrap scarf that one of my amazing students gave me. Lindsay, if you're watching, this is amazing. I love it. It's so cozy. What I was going to say about the ego is a lot of times before I'm about to do a video, I'm like, no, it's already been done. Somebody else has done that. Look, everything's been done. That's why nothing's really authentic. There's one alphabet, and think about how many books. Think about how many concepts there are, and then how many books on each concept. Think about how many religions there are off of one concept, off of one story, essentially. So what is authentic, and who is to be the judge of that? See, that's what's so dangerous about censorship, right? Because who is the judge? Now, I know that there's some scary stuff out there, but see, if everyone would come into their own sovereignty, you wouldn't, yeah, you might act a little and you might be polite in this situation, but you wouldn't put up with. See, the more aware you become, the less likely that you are going to put up with a narcissist. See, what happens is a lot of times people were born into that, right? So you learned it as a survival technique. It's not something that you thought would be fun and you picked it out of a catalog. But in a weird way, I believe that we all did. And some people find offense to like, well, how did we choose? Like, if you believe that you choose this life before you come into incarnation, right? And some people are like, no, because it's been horrible, or I've gone through terrible situations or terrible upbringing. How in the world could I have chosen that? But here's the thing, and this is where my ego's like, oh, everyone's already said this, but this has been on my heart for a long time. I had this epiphany when I was very little. I mean, little, that we chose to come here because before we come here, it's all light. It's all love. So we don't understand, as Eckhart Tolle, or is it Eckhart Tolle or Eckhart Tolle? I don't know. Feels like I hear it all the time different ways, but I want to know. So let me know, is it Tolle or Tolle? Says that when we come to this life school, right? And I really believe that we did. We chose to come to this life school because we were part of all this love. We didn't understand that we'd come into this pain body, as Eckhart, I'll just call him Eckhart, my buddy Eckhart says, right? Then we come into the pain body and we forget. And slowly we forget. And the longer we're here, the more we forget, but that's okay. And that's why we have to heal, and then we learn these lessons. And there's no shame in that because that's the human experience. So to be authentic maybe is to actually ask yourself, like, what character do I want to play? Who do I want to be in this moment? If you're yelling at your kids and suddenly you're playing the mommy dearest character, maybe you don't want that. Maybe you want to recast. Did you guys see that movie? No wire hangers. That was a perfect impersonation. Spot on, says the director. So here's the thing. In this buzzword culture of let's be authentic, or oh, I love them because they're so authentic. And look, I get it. But also have grace that there is no such thing as authentic. Are you the person that you were when you were 4 years old? Maybe your heart and soul, right? But your body's different. Your interests are different. Does that mean because you've changed moment to moment that you're inauthentic? Or have you just changed moment to moment? See, you're only this moment. So I think the true measure, even though there is no measure of authenticity, is really how present are you? Because you're only this moment. So you can look back and say, oh, I was inauthentic in that moment, 2 years ago, I should have been like this, I should have been like that. But you could only be how you were in that moment. And now in this moment, you have a new choice. I think to be totally inauthentic is when you never take ownership and responsibility over your life. But you're not going to do that, right? I think like when we take responsibility, meaning, okay, I had this past that was really challenging, or maybe I acted in a way that I'm not proud of. To be truly authentic maybe means to say to yourself, I'm okay, and I'm going to make a new choice now. And to remember that we chose this stuff because we come from all light and love. And that sounds so corny, but I think it is true. Even my daughter would say the most profound things about being like on the other side, right? Before she was born. And then we begin to forget as we get more and more human. And that's the journey, is forgetting and remembering. And all of it is authentic. It's all a big hot mess of being human. But to remember that you do have a choice of what role you want to play. See, a lot of times people come to an acting class, and for those of you that don't know, I'm an acting teacher, they'll come to an acting class thinking that they're going to get away from themselves and play a character, right? And while you put different layers upon yourself, meaning like an accent, maybe you have a different layer of being that you don't have currently, like you're blind, you add accent, blind, a different walk, a different, suddenly you're a character, but it's your heart and soul inside. And so what people are always surprised by is that they're more truthful on stage or on camera than often in life. Because on stage and on camera, to act, you act before you think. In the Meisner technique, what I teach, Sanford Meisner talks about act before you think, because your impulses are more honest than your ideas, right? To act before you think is to be present, to be in the moment. But that's really scary. So when people say, oh, you just got to be authentic, it's scary because it's present. It's scary because you don't live up here thinking about what you're going to say before you say it and then judging it after. So I think the invitation is to remind yourself that true authenticity is to ask yourself who you want to be in this moment, and to remember that you came into this experience from all love. It's all love and light on the other side. I remember I was in Costa Rica once, 100% sober, okay? And I had this amazing experience where this Rastafarian man came up with his dreadlocks, and he was riding a white horse and his dreadlocks were like bouncing. It was like all this reggae music, and it was pure love. The temperature was perfect. The setting was gorgeous. I was where the jungle meets the sea in this little like Rastafarian village in Costa Rica. And my cousin, who had passed away young, visited me, and he was there in presence, and he's like, Leah, it's all love. Enjoy life. Remember. Come. And it's a temporary, perfectly imperfect, inauthentic, authentic experience of forgetting and remembering and healing, right? So this was for somebody, I don't know who, but let me know if this hit you. Okay, bye.